Dear President Trump and Vice President VP Vance, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a therapist, a judge, or even a politician. I'm simply someone who was severely affected as a child by a severe form of child psychological abuse, and in turn affected by the current family court legal system in the United States. Please hear me out, because what happened to me and to my family is not rare. It's common, pervasive, destructive, and worldwide. Some call this an epidemic. I represent millions of children, voiceless children, who've been harmed not only by the current family law system, but by a very common form of psychological abuse, often known as parental alienation. But I prefer to call a spade a spade. What I'm talking about is a severe form of child psychological abuse. This abuse occurs when an angry and spiteful ex, often during a custody dispute or divorce, manipulates their child to reject their other loving parent without true justification. This is a healthy, loving parent-child bond that is destroyed by a toxic, dysfunctional ex. You see, I was that child. Starting during the end of my parents' marriage, my mom went on an obsessive rampage and used a variety of tactics to turn me, her child, against my dad. She made me believe that he was a monster who didn't love me and who abused her in their marriage. Tons of lies and false accusations went into manipulating me into rejecting my dad. And sadly, it worked. I did reject him for the next 20 years. I never once spent the night at his house. However, I consider our relationship now to be a major success, because since learning at 28 years old that I had been manipulated and abused into believing lies and realizing that my dad really does love and care for me, that's the best case scenario for a lot of kids right now who go through this. Many children and their loving parents right now will never reconnect. And the current family law system often not only allows for this to happen, but enables and encourages parents to use their children as pawns to hurt the other parent. You might be wondering, well, how does this relate to family law? Well, since speaking out about this abuse and advocating for children's rights for the past 2 years, I've been shocked to learn how the current system of family law not only allows for parents to weaponize and commodify their children, but also promotes the abuse I went through. For instance, the simple relationship between parenting time and child support. The fact that the less time a parent spends with a child, the more money they have to pay in child support, naturally incentivizes parents to withhold their children from spending time with that other parent in order to, for a lot of reasons, but including to receive more child support. Another clear issue are protective orders. It has become a situation in family court where the first person to obtain a protective order, which I call a bogus protective order because they claim that they feel a threat of violence, and anyone can do that and get a protective order and also keep your kids away from the other parent. It has become a situation where the first person to obtain a bogus protective order can essentially keep their kids away from their other parent and prevent their other parent from potentially gaining custody. Even a bogus protective order can paint a person's character in the court of law from the start, making it that much more difficult for parents who are truly healthy and loving and haven't done anything wrong to have equal shared custody of their kids. It has become a race for who can get the first protective order and file accordingly as feeling threatened. This is precisely what my own mom did 20 odd years ago when my parents' marriage deteriorated by obtaining a bogus restraining order on the basis of nothing but claiming that she felt threatened by violence. What my mom accomplished, in addition to getting a very large amount of child support and a large alimony, was the destruction of the relationship with my own dad. I was 9 years old, and after she called the cops that day, spinning her lies about what my dad allegedly did to her, in my little 9-year-old brain, my dad was now an abuser, especially because the police were saying so, the family court was saying so, because there was some type of restraining order that was preventing me from seeing him for 60 days. My mom managed to use a protective order in order to keep me away from my dad long enough for me to give up hope. I essentially, during that period of time, I mourned my father completely. And the legal system enabled my mom to continue her abuse because our current legal system doesn't really recognize psychological abuse. But if it's physical or sexual, they do. To summarize, by allowing individuals to file restraining orders without due cause or clear evidence, especially when it involves children, as a protective measure, a preventative measure, by allowing this, you're enabling parents to legally withhold their children from their other loving parent, often without probable cause, sometimes just to hurt the other parent, sometimes to isolate and control the child. Dear President Trump and Vice President VP Vance, I've pointed out just 2 problems with the family law system. Only 2. Unfortunately, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of flaws in the system, as well as current legislation that indeed harms children. And this harm is not limited to a childhood, but often to an entire lifetime. Why has family law and the family court system never been a talking point during an election? Why have president after president, administration after administration overlooked any major family law reforms? As I hear both of you say often, the family is the crucial building block of society, and I believe that wholeheartedly. After all, what's more important than the family unit? Like I said at the start of this video, I am not a lawyer, an expert, or a politician. I'm simply someone who doesn't want to see more children be affected by the current state of family law in our country. I'm here today to humbly ask that you please consider family law reform and addressing child psychological abuse as part of your administration's mission moving forward. Thank you.